I know I was watching Myron Golden the other day, and one of the things that he talked about is we've got to start asking ourselves better questions. And I think this is one of the things that I teach my entrepreneurs as well. A better question and what if it doesn't work? And you got to get to that better, because if you stick in that world of scarcity, of lack, of it might not work, I'm worried about the downside.
This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. Okay, so here's the problem. Here's the case study, everyone, that we're going to work on today. I'm going to give you the scenario, Rob, and we need to help this guy get over himself or get over the situation. And I think by doing that, we can also help other people. Here it is. Mm-hmm. So the guy says, hey, I got a call from some people that want to help me with my production, video production, making stuff easier, right? And he says, yeah, but I don't want to spend the money. They told him what it was going to cost.
Where have I heard that before?
Yeah. They told him what it's going to cost. He sees the reasoning in it. I've talked to him about, look, it makes sense to leverage your time, da-da-da-da-da. But he is still having difficulty pulling the trigger on letting the people work for him. Letting the people come in and do the work. And there's some outshoring and some outsourcing opportunities. What is his problem? Why won't he just go, that makes sense?
I'm speaking for a friend, not for myself. Of course not. I've never had this problem. Right. No, but I think one of the things that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs is the question of what if it doesn't work lurks in the background all the time. And I know I was watching Myron Golden the other day, and one of the things that he talked about is we've got to start asking ourselves better questions. And I think this is one of the things that I teach my entrepreneurs as well. A better question and what if it doesn't work? And you got to get to that better, because if you stick in that world of scarcity, of lack, of it might not work, I'm worried about the downside. It's important for us to pay attention to kind of, right, to discern what's a good investment, what's a bad investment. But the way you discern a good investment from a bad investment is not by just focusing on the downside. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. And it sounds like your guy, that's what he's stuck in. He can't see the upside, but focus on the downside.
Yes. Yeah. And keep in mind now, me knowing this guy very well, I know that he is a saver extraordinaire. This guy can save some money, right? Well, he saves money by saying no to a lot of stuff. That's A. But now it's starting to hurt him because he's a saver. It's kind of cheap, probably, right? Could rather kind of do it himself. Hey, I know exactly.
Right.
I could have been looking in the mirror. And so you got these factors.
Yeah, and then the key thing. Go ahead.
No, so then one of the other things is that, so he's got these things running, right? And he's always spending his money ahead of time. In other words, he says, well, I got this trip that I could take in June, so I'm going to save money for that. These things come up now. Now he has the opportunity to, buy back a lot of his time with specific activities that these folks are saying they're going to help him with. And it's like 3 different choices. You got 3 opportunities. One person to do this, one person to do that, another person to do this. All in about $2,000.
So there's a couple of things that I've looked at, and I was just literally coaching somebody on this today because they were doing the same thing. They need an administrative assistant to take all the admin off of their plate, and they're like, I don't know if I can hire somebody to do that, blah, blah, blah. So there's 2 things that, and again, I like to pull and curate information. You can go find it, and I will give attribution where I know where I heard it from. So one of the things that I heard that I think applies to this is so many people have heard and will tell themselves the lie that time is money, right? And Myron Golden says, no, you can't believe that. That's a lie. It's not. Time is not money. And here's how you know. And if I would give you a check right now for $1 million and it would clear, would you want that check?
Yes.
Everybody in their right mind says, of course I would, as long as I don't got to do nothing, you know, unlawful to get
Immoral
it,
or
right?
illegal.
Or immoral to get it. Right, exactly. Immoral or illegal. It's like, yeah, nothing immoral, nothing illegal. But here's the condition. The second after I give you that check, your life will end. Do you still want the check?
Oh, hey. Hey, guys.
Exactly. Right. Everybody backs away from it.
My
And the
life is
whole point
over?
is exactly right. I don't get to spend it. I don't get right. Inherently, you understand time is much more valuable than money. And therefore, we have to treat our time like money. We've talked about this. You and I talked about this with Dan Martell, right? From an entrepreneurial perspective, your number one goal after producing, after figuring out how to produce value to your customers, right, is to figure out how to buy your time back from your business. So if you are producing value, if you are making money doing what you're doing, you next need to figure out how to buy your time back from your business. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. I struggle with it figuring out what's the calculation. How do I figure out what's a good amount of money to buy my time back with? And I think that's
Sure.
the biggest key. And one of the things I took from Robert Kiyosaki for me was instead of like that trip, right? If I'm going to take a trip in the summer or whatever I'm going to do, I have learned to retrain my brain to say, what is the asset or what is the income stream that I'm going to create that's going to
Mm-hmm.
pay for that trip
Mm-hmm.
rather than taking that income stream from an income, taking that extra expense from an income stream that I've already created that's paying for other things.
Mm.
So instead of saving my money, I go make money specifically for that thing.
So what do I have to invest in? Twist in, y'all hearing this? If y'all hearing this, you like it, comment. You like it, send it to somebody. Say you need to hear right here at section 3.5, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mindset shift. What investment do I have to make versus what do I have to save? What can I cut back on? Ah, that's
Right.
good. See, that's
That's the
that
big
Dave
key
Ramsey
because
world,
you can
right?
only
And I know he
cut to
comes from
zero.
that space, that world.
Exactly, exactly, right. And then no, because the whole thing about it is you can only cut to zero, right?
Right.
If you save all of your money, you still only have all of the money that you have made.
Mhm,
But what if you can go make twice as much as you're making?
mhm,
Now you can spend as much as you're saving, and you'll still have that money to save.
mhm.
But you can't do that if you're saving, right? Like that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of people don't get. I love the fact that I spend more money now on my staff than I paid myself my first year in business, my first 2 years in business. And I'm still paying me more than I paid myself my first 2 years in business as well. It's not
Yeah.
as if I'm paying my staff and I'm not paying me. I'm
Yeah.
making more money and therefore I can pay them and I can pay me. And that then allows us to make even more money. So then I can pay more people to make more money. And
Yeah.
each time, right? And it's not just me. I've got other business owners. I got, clients. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a $1 billion company or $1,000 company. The whole key is you want to figure out, how do I afford this? How do I build an income stream or an asset that can pay for this rather than what happens if I spend this money and I don't get it back? There's a Bible verse that says, in all work there is profit, but talk alone is meaningless.
Mm. There's power. I got a coaching session with about 8 entrepreneurs after we get off here today. And I think one of the opening things I'm going to come up with is the cost. And we're going to break down the cost of inaction. Then we're going to break
Mm-hmm.
down what is your time worth. And then what, because I'm going to use this lesson to then go out there and
Mm-hmm.
teach it, right? That's why I started our Bridge
Yeah.
Business Institute. We do stuff to learn to then teach, right? But
To
this
then
one
teach.
right here
There
is
you go.
gnarly because I felt it. I felt it in my soul.
Right
I
down
saw
inside, right?
myself in the mirror, and I
Yep.
continue to see myself
Yep.
in the mirror.
And
So
I
I wanted us
promise
to
you,
talk about it.
and you and me have talked about this a lot off camera as well, right? Because we're cut from the same cloth in that way, right? The only difference I think was because I came to this from a leadership, a teaching perspective, I knew the power of more people.
Mhm.
That was something that was right, and it was ingrained in me. It's what I do. It's what I teach. So I when we would talk about this, if you remember back in the beginning, it was always like I felt like I was fighting with myself, and finally, I let the part of me win that I knew understood how to be better, and then I said, okay, now you got to figure out how to make it work instead of me fighting and being like, I'm not going to spend this money. I'm not right. No, instead, I'm like, okay, I'm going to force myself to, like I said, I have a number of times I have wanted something, a trip, a coaching session, or whatever. And once I develop that want, I literally tell myself, okay, how can you go afford that? What can you sell? What can you do? And I've done, things from 4 figures all the way to 6 figures that I created so that I could afford whatever it was that I wanted. And then I went and sold it, and then I could have the thing. And that ability does two things to you. Number one, it makes you realize that there is no lack except for your ability, your knowledge of understanding how to go get it. It doesn't mean that it can't be gotten, right? There are people making $1 million a minute right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
You just not one of them, right? You know what I mean? Like we're just not like we're not sitting in those places, but there are people that do it right now. The
Mhm.
question is, how can you go get that? And that's what I had to start really, it became a mantra almost. And the more people that I've seen do it, that's what happens. It changes the dynamic of, oh, we only have $100 to what if we had $200? What if we had $300? What can we do to take this same amount of
Yeah.
energy that got me a
Yeah.
hundred dollars and make it go get me 200 or make it go get me three
Yeah.
hundred. And when you start asking different questions, you start getting different answers.
Rob, it's right. It's why we put this on, right? This Two Business Guys
Yeah.
Mastermind is because proximity is power. I heard Tony Robbins say that just actually like 10 minutes ago. Proximity is power. When you get
Yeah.
around people that have done it, you now can say, here's an example. But now what I want to do is I want us to, here's the situation. Now we're going to solve for
Mm-hmm,
X
mm-hmm,
because we want to be able to deliver
mm-hmm.
every single time that we're talking,
Yeah.
deliver the outcome. So here is how I've
Yeah.
delivered the outcome in so many situations where a person is, and I'm gonna use this word, I apologize, y'all, reticent to accept what's there, right? When they're
Yeah.
resistant, when
What
they're
would you
reluctant,
say
whatever
in
we
your
want to
book?
say.
Yeah. Would you
Reluctant
call him in your
entrepreneur,
book the reluctant entrepreneur?
reluctant entrepreneur. And then the new book that I just came out
Yeah.
with is called Reluctant No More. Anyway, so
Ah,
here's
ah.
what I do. And it works like magic. So hopefully, if y'all listening to this, you're getting into it. You're saying this is the one. I'm going to follow these guys. I'm going to share, all the stuff with them. Tell everybody. Here's what I said. First of all, I talk about. All right. Well, let's talk about your time. And it's a varying situation, right? I said, well, let's talk about your time. What do you make on your job? $25 an hour. Okay. And it
Mm-hmm.
varies, right? Some people are making more, some people are making less.
Mm-hmm.
I says, okay, let's just check
Exactly.
that. So I did
Overtime, no
25.
overtime. Yeah.
And this is what I'll be doing later tonight is I'll be putting it up on the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
No harm, no foul. I don't care if you're
Mm-hmm.
making
Mm-hmm.
$15 an hour. Doesn't matter. Okay,
Exactly.
let's multiply that times 2, right? 40 hours. That's how much it is. I said, so let's say that our time is worth, based on this job, based on what they tell me, based on what the boss is saying, this amount. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
whatever it is you're getting ready to do, what do you think that's worth? Because if the person that's calling you, saying to you, I'll do that for, you do the math, $10 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and you're making 15, you hire them. You're making 20, 25, whatever it
Exactly.
is, you have leveraged your
Mm-hmm.
time. But this is where I have found, and I'm starting to dig in and understand this why. The business
Mm-hmm.
is not making them money. So they're in some way saying, I can't
Mm-hmm.
afford to do it. Or, and I've heard this before from good friends of mine that says, well, I'm not paying for nothing until it makes me money. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've heard that.
Yep.
I'm not paying for a dime until I
Yep.
know it's making me money. I said, and then there's strategies around that. But as I dig in,
Exactly.
it all goes back to I don't trust that this action will return to me not only the money, but
Yep.
the fact that it's taking something. And this is, Rob, this is deep. that is taking something from me. I hadn't thought about this until I started really digging
that
in
I
on this
value.
problem. What is it taking away? The fact that they do that work.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that for a minute. So, but that's what I do. So I'm going to
Yeah.
hire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So this is what
Yeah. It's a
keeps me
lot of
busy
people.
all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
What? Wait, what? Yes, I do that work. I have these systems around it. I have this time around it. I drink my coffee to it, whatever it is. Now they have to
Mm-hmm.
repurpose their time and they are not prepared.
Yep. No, I
Think
agree with
about
you.
that,
And I think to
Rob.
your point,
I know this person has the money. I know it for a fact.
mm-hmm.
They've got the money.
And here's the thing, and most people do. I think you pointed out two really important things. One, what you said first, which I think is the key thing, is they're stuck in the mentality of instant gratification, right? Transactional relationships. They're stuck in the idea. I go to the store, I pay them my money, they give me the thing, right? And I remember you talked to me about this probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I love the analogy that you used for it, where it was you have to move from being a hunter, right? I see food, I kill
Yeah,
food, I
yeah,
eat food, to being a farmer,
yes,
and to
yes,
understanding that you put seed into ground and you don't see harvest for a while. But when
right,
you see harvest, it's tenfold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold instead of I see food, I
yes,
kill food, I eat food.
yes.
And so many people struggle with that, right? Like, because think about it, we've been conditioned to get paid every week, every 2 weeks,
Mhm.
at
We show
most
up, we
every
do a
month.
thing, we get paid. That's why I said here, I get.
Right.
That's
And
instant
if we're not
gratification.
getting paid, we in the office, like, where's my money? Right. And so that's something that a lot of people have to break. And then the other thing I think, which is really important also, is people don't have a good way of judging what a good return on this investment is.
Ooh,
Because
return
again,
on time.
we are normally doing capital. I mean, we're doing apples to apples. I give this much, I make this much per hour. We have bought into the lie that your time is worth a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I put in 4 hours. I expect $25 an hour. So that's $100. And I can do that math. But what does that math look like when I put in 4 hours and next year I make 1,000, and then the year after that I make 10,000 off that same 4 hours,
That
and then the year after that I make 100,000 off that
that
same four
part.
hours?
This is where the second part that I get them. And I say to them, okay, I'm going to show, and I built a whole business out of it. I'm going to show you how to repurpose that one thing into many things.
Yeah,
Once I show them that, it's over.
right.
Because I say, listen, here's
Yeah,
what we're
and
going to do. And in this particular case, it was like, okay,
but
let's take your,
I
your
want to stop. I
videos.
want to stop real quick. I want to stop real quick. I want to stop real quick though, because yes, what you're talking about is how you put it on like rocket fuel. But
Yes.
I want that first point of do the work once and get paid on it forever, right? You and I both have written a number of books. I get a check from Amazon at least once a month every time somebody buys a book. I wrote, I haven't written a book that I put out in at least 2 years. I think the last book I put out was in 2022, right? No, I take that back. The last book I put out was in 2018. I mean, 2020. I put out a book in 2018. I put out a book in 2020. And I'm still getting paid off of both of those books in 2024. Why? Not because I am out there, you know, writing more books. It's stuff that I wrote years ago,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
still pays.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand that. And I think that, and you've got all types of these little, kind of, I like to call them farms that you've plotted that are just continually regenerating. Like that's your whole business model. I think that part, before you repurpose it, before you make more money and more money and more money on it, right? More money, more money, more money, right? Like before you go that way, just the one thing of doing the work once and getting paid on it for
That's it.
that work, not any augmenting work, not any extra work, not anything other than it's
Yeah.
there, it's done,
Yeah.
and it is now able to make me money. That point that you just made, I think is so important for
And
people to
hard.
understand.
And it's hard. I had a coaching call this morning, right? I do our pretty much busy day, coaching and doing something like that, right? One was online
Mm-hmm.
who's having problems with a client, and I says, I'm gonna answer your question with a story. It's a personal story. And I said, this is what I had to do. I had to fire the client, blah, 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 at the end. Right. Now, so I gave him the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the situation. Yes, you are going to deal with that. I call it stupid tax, or Dave Ramsey calls it stupid tax. You paid it. Now, let him go. Kind
Yep.
of a thing, right? And anyway, so
Yep. Liberate them back
um,
to the marketplace.
uh, so getting back to the main thought, it is in the coaching call that I had this morning was just do the work. Trust me when I say this. I told this was a lady. I says just do the first part because I can show you how to do the second, third, and fourth. But if you don't do the first part, in other words, I says create content around, produce this content around something that you already done. First, it was like this. Here was the
Mm-hmm.
situation. I can't get in front of people and talk, blah blah blah. Then she finally got past that. Got in front of people with a
Mm-hmm.
PowerPoint. It was beautiful. They loved it. She got business. I says, now you have the evidence. I said, so imposter syndrome 0, action 10. I says, now, do you
Mm-hmm.
now believe that you can do it? Yes. That was the hardest part. Because at first it was like,
There you go.
I'm gonna, and she hadn't done it. And I was like, you hadn't done it. Then one day something came up where she did it. And I says, now let's take the energy from that, from already having done it. And then you're just gonna literally talk about what you did do. And you're gonna do that in another format. And then I showed her 4 or 5 different
Mm-hmm.
things and ways by which to monetize it. I said, we're gonna productize it and then monetize it. And she was
There
like,
you
I
go.
see it. I said, but if you never had did the first thing and gotten past this fear and imposter syndrome kept winning, all is lost.
That part, that is another really powerful thing, right? Sometimes we have to do the first step before we can see what's necessary to do the next step.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is something I know for me, that was one of the most difficult things to
You got to spend the
accept as
money.
an entrepreneur,
Just do it,
or
Rob.
not even to spend the money, whatever it is, right? But I'm a strategy person. I'm 5, 6, 7, 10 steps. And some things in entrepreneurship, you can see step one clear as day. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is like they behind a veil.
No
And until
certainty.
you step to step one,
That's
right,
crazy.
you can't see. It's like being in fog, right? Like when you're driving in fog, like the closer you get to the light, you can see the light all day. But
Yeah.
you back 100 feet, 200 feet, it's like, I know there's supposed to be a stop sign or a light coming up here, and you can't see it. And I think that part also, I know for a lot of entrepreneurs, I know for me at least, that was one of the scariest things because I come from being a planner, because I come from seeing, further out. So then you get analysis paralysis because you're trying to get as much information as you can
Yeah.
because you're worried about making a
Yeah.
mistake.
Sure.
And it's like, I remember I was listening to Steve Harvey give a talk one time, and he was like, the hardest part about this thing is you got to just leap. You got to jump off that cliff and have faith that you either gonna sprout wings on the way down, or you gonna pop out a parachute, or you gonna land in some water, something, but you gotta
Oh,
jump. And it's not like you just jump and it's all good. No, you jump and like you hit the mountain a couple times and then you pop out, and
yeah.
that's the
Sure.
journey. But the one thing that he said about that I thought was so powerful was it's not gonna break you such that you can't come back from it, right?
Good point.
If you think about all the entrepreneurs that we've coached, all the people that we've seen in this game, I have never met an entrepreneur who making a mistake in their business was fatally tragic,
Yeah.
right?
Good
I've
point.
never met somebody where their life ended, where they couldn't continue making money, continue to get a job. I've never met anybody where they couldn't pick themselves back up. And I've
Yeah.
seen some egregious fall. Like 2008, like I knew a whole bunch of people whose businesses went kaput,
Yeah.
right? Even some
Uh,
people that went to jail, right? Like think about it. Andy Fastow. A lot of you all might know who Andy Fastow is. Andy Fastow was a CFO for Enron,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, Andy Fastow is now out of jail and on the speaker circuit, making money, talking about how he went to jail because he was in some shady dealings in Enron, right? Like I think the biggest thing that we have to remember is, and it's cliche, right? But if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody in business doing business that wasn't shady criminal activity. I've never seen anybody in business where the mistakes or whatever was something that was, you know,
Man.
tremendously detrimental to them in that way. Now, that doesn't mean you won't lose stuff. I mean, it doesn't
Sure.
mean you might not go bankrupt. That doesn't mean you might not have to dig out all the rest of those things. But I know so many people that have bounced and bounced back not just to where they were, but better.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a significant amount of education that comes from just doing something I faced this weekend too. I had this idea for a particular kind of website, and I'm using a new builder, and I says, I don't know how. It's a curve. It's one of those things where this is something you want to do because A, didn't find a whole bunch of people out there, or what you did find, it was just substandard. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make it better because I see the gap. Now it's an opportunity. I see the gap here, but I gotta figure it out first so I can teach it better than what I've been seeing. And I've been looking all over. I did it wrong. I mean, bro, it was bad. And I it was a landing page together, and it was an idea. Um, and I thought, well, this is interesting. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, I think this is wrong. Because what I did on one page was end up on every single page. I'm like, it's not supposed to be on every page. So I'm looking around all over Hell's Half Acre, trying to find out how to fix it. And it came to me. I watched one video that was an actual course on it I bought, and he was saying the same things. It was incomplete, and it just hit me. Wait a minute. Oh, I see why it ended up like that. Because I put this one thing in the wrong spot and it showed up everywhere else. So then I went in and did a video on that. And I mean, I was fired up. I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? I didn't see anything online. You won't get this instruction. So I've decided to come on and show you once and for all the best way to create using this builder this way. I says, everything else, they don't tell
There
you
you
enough. And I
go.
think it's because they didn't know. I said, but I've made the mistakes,
Yeah.
and I showed them the mistake. I said, see what I did here? This is why. And I says, so I want to teach you and show you so you won't do it too.
That's it. That's it. And so many people are afraid to make those mistakes, but I have found, and I say so many people, I was one of those people. I still am one of those recovering people who make those mistakes
Same here.
and am not comfortable making those mistakes. And the thing that I find is over and over and over again, when we make those mistakes, recognize that we made those mistakes, and then solve them, that then becomes a solution that helps a bunch more people than just me.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Even the stuff that I teach with time mastery, like thriving in chaos, literally, I am patient zero. Like I'm the number one person that was sinking in the chaos of being very successful, being very capable, feeling like I was drowning. Everybody else is like, "Oh, you're doing amazing. This is great. You can do so much."
All
And
this activity.
they look at it and think, right, it's all this activity, you get so much done. But for me, I was like, this is horrible. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep this up. I don't know how I'm going to continue. Right. I'm on the verge of burnout. And
Mm.
then I'm going to let everybody down. Then everything's going to be horrible. Then I'm going to lose because I had a business at the time. I was in the Marine Corps. I was married. Like I'm going to lose everything because I'm not going to be able to be who everybody expects me to be.
Mm.
And that's where thriving in chaos came from for me, right? Like I was messing it up. I was working 12, 13, 14 hours a day. My wife came to me and was like, I didn't get married to be a single parent. Why are you never home? Right? Like all the things that people
Wow.
deal with.
Powerful.
That was my experience. And now we've sold over 1,000 copies of that book and helped, over 100 people go through our Thriving in Chaos program from that experience.
I knew I went through the program, y'all. So, because look, I am can I hear it, learn it better kind of a person, right? So, and I went through it early, like when it was still kind of, I think, halfway formed or whatever. It's probably, much different and much better now. So I encourage you to check it
Mm-hmm.
out. But
Mm-hmm.
here's something that I am
I
still
think
recovering from.
you went through it still just a half.
Yeah, you were at the University Club or something like that. But it is critical
Mm-hmm.
that we continue to learn. Right now, y'all know the framework I got: learn, create, get paid. Right? You learn something, you owe it to that learning to create something, and I mean same day. And then you owe it to yourself to then start putting it out there and giving
Mm-hmm.
it an opportunity to learn or earn for you. That's it. Learn, create, get paid. LCGP. Right. And I say to myself, that's how I run my own thing. Learn it. What have I learned? Oh, that goes with this. Okay, create. What can you do? That's what got me into that one thing. I was like, well, I got to be able to create faster. So I was going to use this particular builder, and I was using a certain side of it. I know I could do this. I want to do this over here because it will be much, much better. Create, did it wrong. So I did it wrong. All right, saying my internet's unstable. I got to get me a booster. So, oh, what time is it? Yeah, about that time people getting off work. So, okay, learn, create, get paid. Then the next thing becomes the getting
Mm-hmm.
paid. Put it out there, run some traffic to it, see if it will earn you a dime, right? And y'all know from Earn Every Dime Online, that's what it's all about. Learn it first. Grab the stuff that helps you create, and then find
Yep.
the means by which
And
to get paid.
I think I think one of the things that is really important to add to that, because I love your framework and that whole concept. I think the one thing that I would say is, especially for the people that are like me that are listening, right? Those of y'all that love learning and love learning so much that you let it keep you in the way of creating. I want to introduce the idea, and I know Randy talks about this in his course in depth. So make sure you all go check that out if this is something that's interesting to you. The big thing that you want to understand is the concept of a MVP, a minimum viable product.
Yes.
And what that means is the least amount that you need for it to work. Because what those of us who love learning like to do is we love to learn how to build, a skyscraper when you haven't figured out how to build a hut yet. Hey, and it's important that you learn enough to build a structure that stands, then learn some more and build a different structure and learn some more, build a different structure. Instead of thinking that you're going to go and just learn how to build a skyscraper, that's because you don't actually understand how people that build skyscrapers learn. And so just be aware that you may be great at learning stuff. What you're not going to do is learn how to build something awesome without ever having practiced building something that's mediocre, right?
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar used to say anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly until I can do it well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is part, the whole, and I don't know if it's the perfectionist or procrastinator. If it's a perfectionist that
Mm-hmm.
says, I do stuff so well, I can't deal with the shame of doing something badly until I get better. Or if it's well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to procrastinate and maybe it'll go away. Maybe this feeling will go away. When I get a little older,
Right.
when I get a little more knowledge, it'll go away. I did that with
Right.
degrees. Well, when I get this degree, it'll go away. My fear, my
Mm-hmm.
reluctance, and it never went away.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
until I started
Exactly.
stuff. Once I started stuff, it went away.
That part.
It went away. I'm
That part.
telling you,
I
y'all,
still I
it went away.
I I think that is so powerful. Like again, it's so crazy. We're most of the times we'll sit on here and we'll be arguing, y'all. But today we lock each other. Um, the thing that I feel like about what you just said there is so funny that you said that because I want to get a PhD, but I won't let myself get a PhD until I hit the goals that I have for my businesses and all the rest of that, so that I can take the time to actually just go study. I'm not trying to get a PhD so that I can
Go earn a living,
have it make money
trade it
for me
in.
right away. I want to actually go get a PhD so I can go learn something that I can build for later. But I have to go earn the time to go get a PhD instead of the other way around. Instead of what I did in my life before, which is, oh well, if I learn this one more thing, then I can make enough money to. If I learn this one more thing, then I can make enough money to. It's like, nah, I'm gonna go make enough money with what I know right now. And with what I know right now, I'm gonna go make that money and I'm gonna let me learn this next thing that I'm gonna create and then
I love
earn
that.
and keep learn, create, earning as time goes.
It's really apropos to what we're talking about, isn't it? I'm dropping the words on y'all today. But apropos to what we're talking about, man, when we say things like earn your time, earn your time back, It's like make the
Mm-hmm.
business earn your time back, and then you get to the
Mm-hmm.
point where you earn time back from the business. So to that point, when we start talking about, well, who can help me leverage that? Somebody dropped into my lap recently, and it was like, oh, they did some stuff that I do. So of course they had my attention, right? And the way that they
Mm-hmm.
came at
Mm-hmm.
it and says, hey, I think I can help you with this. And they showed me the problem. And I was like, yeah, that's a problem. I knew it was a problem, but I hadn't gotten around to it, procrastination. And then they says, I think I can help you. And then they showed me. I said, well, prove it. And they did. And I was like, you're not only hired, what else can you do? Right. So
Exactly. Take my
and
money,
that, remember I told
please.
you that approach that I had that has like a 95+% conversion rate on 95,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm being generous. And I'm not being generous. I'm telling you
Mm-hmm.
it's more than that. It just worked on me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And I tried to fight. Give me a sample. He says, no problem. And I got the sample back and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, are you ready to? And
This
I
is
says,
amazing.
yes. Where do I send the money? That's
Stop.
literally what I says.
Exactly.
And then I went on and created a video on it. I
Yep.
showed
Yep.
the
Yep.
picture and I says, now look, let me show you what I do. This is what I do. The same thing in a different environment that does that same kind of close, right? Now I'm not even into the sales part of it, but so I had to kind of I had to frame it as a marketing ploy and marketing tactic that
Mm-hmm.
works. Like I almost don't even want to share it because it works so good. But I did. I happened to do a
Yep.
workshop, a live workshop on it, and I shared it. And people were like, "Oh, I hadn't thought about that."
Yep.
And they came on with like, being
Mm-hmm.
very experienced. It's like, I got this all figured out. What's he talking about? And then they saw that and it's like, oh. Then it happened to me a
Mm-hmm.
week later, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Yep. Nah, I love it. I love it. I think that it's one of those important things. So I want to make sure that we get the answer to our friend's conundrum out of this
yeah. Oh,
out of this
I got
call.
him. I got him
So
straight. I got him straight.
again,
I,
so no, I'm talking about for the people. I'm talking about for the
okay.
people that are listening because we
Yeah.
left them with the cliffhanger. So
Okay.
you're sitting there and you know that you could spend this money. You know that
Yes.
you could buy your time back, but how do you
Yes.
get yourself to the point where you can pull that trigger? I
Yes.
think some tangible things that I would say that people need to take away from them are you have to ask yourself first the better question that we talked about at the beginning. The better question is, what does this look like if it works?
Yes.
And not if it works like pie in the sky works. What does it look like if it just works 50%?
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like if it works 70%?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because one of the cool things is if it just works 50% and it's good, you don't need to procrastinate no more. Go get it. Right? Because you can mess up half of everything and it's still gonna work.
Yeah.
And I think that situation for me, I don't know if this was for you, but for me, when I stopped trying to make everything be perfect and I started saying, am I comfortable with the worst case scenario I can consider out of this? Is that still acceptable? It made it a
Right.
lot easier for me to pull the trigger on
Yeah.
spending money.
And for me, it's talking myself. I have to de-risk it, right? Because once I de-risk it with, well, what else could I do if it doesn't work? Well, I can create content around it. In fact, that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy, he gets out of
Mm-hmm.
jail and he says, well, let me talk about that. I de-risked it
Exactly.
multiply. And then I says, well, from this
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I spent money on, I then get this asset that as soon as I was able to say this to this other person, or when I do it, when I'm having these difficulties myself, it was like, yeah, but do you have something in your hand? Yes. And can you, from that thing in your hand, create multiple things? Yes. That's a learned thing. And when I'm teaching it, I'm saying, well, let me show you what you can do from those things. Rob, this weekend,
Yes.
I found I had been reintroduced to an old app that I had bought and used
Mm-hmm.
maybe twice. But then I saw the
Mm-hmm.
usefulness for it in another capacity. And it was like, oh my gosh.
Mm,
Then I was looking for a specific PDF so I could use it on this app. Couldn't find it nowhere. And finally, I did a search somewhere, and that sucker popped up
hmm
because it had. And from that point, now that I have learned more, there was 4 different things I could do with that thing. But when I first got this particular app, I only knew one. I wasn't experienced enough to say, oh,
hmm
I can de-risk any cost associated with this by doing 4 things now, developing 4 lanes and possibilities of income. So now I
hmm
teach that. Hey, let me help you de-risk that.
Nice.
And so I don't even have to
Nice.
sell
I like
anymore.
that. I
I'm
like that.
just telling. I'm saying, let me tell you four
Yep.
things, 4 ways, and then I'm gonna show you so you see that, oh, it's not you being 5'6" and saying I'd love to be 7 foot. It ain't gonna never happen. And I asked, I says, now is
I
this
love it.
a 5'5", 5'6" to 7 foot moment? No. In other words, everything that I'm showing you, you can do or
You
see it
can
done.
do.
And I said, I'll even
Yes.
help you. So
Yes.
now they got somebody to stand beside them. We got a spotter like in the
hmm
gym. That right there, man, 100%.
There we go.
So
That's
you're
it.
hearing
That's
this,
it.
y'all.
And I think that's the yeah, I like that as the close for what we're trying to do. For you all out there that are struggling with pulling the trigger on spending money, thinking about that, the 2 things that we talk about, right? Ask yourself better questions. Make sure that you're following people or working with people that can help you walk along that way, that are not selling you pie in the sky, but are rather selling you realistic goals. And get a mentor. Get somebody who can
Oh man,
literally walk alongside you.
I had no idea how powerful
Don't feel like you got to do it all by yourself.
that was.
Say what?
Mentorship, I had no idea how powerful. I had no idea how powerful that mentorship part was. And that
Mm-hmm.
proximity is power moment. Because once you get around other people, you naturally rise to another level,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Or you don't, you just
Yep.
bounce out. But normally you will rise, especially if you got them. They're
Yep.
saying
Yep.
to you, you can do this. Well, let me show you. Be like, well, how or who? And they go, them, that, and
mm-hmm.
you go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yep.
So you
Yep.
address
Nah, I
every
agree.
possible. I learned that from Jason. What's his name? Jason Flatling, and he talked about when you're doing a webinar. He says right up front, he says hit all the objections. And you showed me some
Mm-hmm.
video. Remember that one video you showed me? It says this right here hits all the objections, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it does.
Yep.
Oh, person
Yep.
has
Yep.
nothing left to
Exactly.
defend
Now they
as
just
to
have
why
to
they shouldn't.
go ahead and walk on the path.
That's
Yep.
it, everybody. That's
It's the
what we
best.
have for
That's
you.
the best thing.
Hopefully,
All
that's
right.
able to take you to another level. If you like it, do what we ask. We're growing the channel. We want you to be a part of it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Send it to somebody that you know needs to get in on it. All right, that's it. We'll
Definitely.
talk to you next time.